Alright, my apologies for that. I am back. Work calls, you gotta take it, you know. So, yeah, as soon as I did start looking into the moon landing, it was just obviously something was wrong. And I've heard good excuses like, well, they actually did go, but they just had to fake the images and videos because the radiation belt, the Van Allen radiation belt, like, it was unusable. So they faked it, but they did go. Okay, all right, I can buy that 50-50. But then the more you look into it, the more it seems impossible. And then you have Don Pettit saying he would go back in a nanosecond. And this is a guy that I think supposedly went, but they destroyed the technology, and it is a painful process to build it back. So, yeah, all that being said, let's see. I didn't make a lot of notes that I don't even remember why I started this podcast the way I did. But let's get into some of the topics that I wrote down, and it's basically just about our Western culture is being eroded. It is by design that our school system, it just makes workers. John D. Rockefeller said he wants a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. And then he redid the textbooks. And if you just look at the test scores and the IQ scores of the American population from the late 1800s to 2020s, it's just a steady decline. We used to be number 1, now we're number 20 or number 60 or something insane like that. Look at Charlotte Iserby. She wrote a book, Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Look at John Taylor Gatto and its Weapons of Mass Destruction. And there's a couple other ones I can't think of right now. But I mean, if you look at it, and then you have Common Core math, I can't do it. It makes zero sense to me. So I would never use Common Core math because you're adding extra steps. It's deliberately confusing, and I don't. So yeah, I just don't get it. So as we're dumbing our country down, we're injecting them with more and more propaganda and more beliefs, not facts, as they're going to these school centers. And then you have your government just recently this week they are saying these are our kids. These are not your kids, these are all of our kids. So I mean, it's just collectivism versus individualism. This is the goal. Call it communism if you want. Don't use communism as a word. It doesn't matter. It's collectivism. And they'll send your kids off to war, but their kids, no, we can't do that. They're too important. They're too high blood, to be sending off. We got to have them we have to have the good stock to send the poor stock to fight our wars. All these banker wars. Look at Smedley Butler. What's his name? World War I guy, Smedley. He wrote War is a Racket. And if you look at his story, it's quite incredible, because he was supposed to lead a coup to take over the U.S. government. Another good book to read is The Anglo-American Establishment and Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, Bill Clinton's mentor. So that's a good one. Lately, murder is being, depending on your race, murder is more and more being accepted. It's just, it's intense out there. And so you have to think of it like this, that they have a timeline. I mean, they have Agenda 2030 for a reason. And I think it was offset a little bit. so their timeline's sped up. You look at all their war games and psyop war playing games that they have, and it gives you a kind of like a timeline. So if you look at the SPARS pandemic war game, it's like 80% exactly what we just lived through, and that's quite interesting. But yeah, like the movies, The Purge, that series, that was just getting. I think that's what they want. They want it to be okay. Maybe, I don't know exactly like that. Maybe not one night of everything's legal, but I wouldn't doubt it with the psychos that are in charge. But if you have any minority killing white people, it's a good thing. And that guy's usually the victim. Or if you have that New York train thing that just happened, the Marine, he was like, from what I heard, everyone said the Michael Jackson impersonator was threatening people, and so he helped, accidentally killed him, and they're making the Michael Jackson impersonator the victim, and the Marine that tried to help people, he's being indicted, and he's the villain. So everything is being inverted, basically. So self-defense, you're the villain. You act crazy, someone stops you, they're the victim. With the advent of social media, it's clever, but it gave them a way to attack the First Amendment, and then that gives the government a chance to go under the radar and tell these social media companies to censor people. Like, granted, the Twitter files didn't show anything we didn't already know, and it didn't give any like verifiable evidence, but it gave like glimpses of what they were doing. And most of the people that it was happening towards, we had already known. I mean, we came up with the words shadow ban, and and those were from articles like I think Vice ran something. That's where the term shadow ban came from. Was, mainstream media puts out this information, but the rest of the mainstream media either ignores it, and then when someone in the alternative media reads it and puts it out, big mainstream calls that alternative like fake news or conspiracy theorists. And we're just telling you what one of your people said. And they're like, no, that's not what really happened. So it's very interesting how they play these little games. So continuing with the Western culture is being eroded. Like, racism is being more acceptable. Like, what was the point of the civil rights era? If you're just gonna go segregate again, like we had Jim Crow laws, and there is very good argument from the black community that they say the civil rights era was bad for the black people because black people had black owned businesses, and like they were building themselves up, to compete with the white people or whatever. And when civil rights era came in, it turned everything around. And then it's just very good arguments. I understand that. Yeah, like look at the Jewish people. They have a circular culture where they support each other and they thrive. And there's a few Jews that openly talk about it, which is pretty interesting. But they don't want this information out because I think if the Goyim use this information, we might be able to compete with them and build ourselves up, like the black people, just a circular economy. Like, they will build themselves up, and I think that's what was happening in the civil rights era, and the CIA and the FBI had to come in and smash that. So America is a Christian country. I mean, it was founded by whoever, but they were Christians, and because we wanted to get away from a monarch, so we came here. Granted, yeah, we did some horrible things to come here, but now, as you know, freedom of religion, and we have rights given to us by God, not by the king. So we have unalienable rights that come from our Creator. Like that gave. Why do you think America is known as the best? Why is it number one? Because we had God on our side. We feared God, and we knew we would be judged one day. So we wanted to make a country for Him. And what happened? It was the greatest country in the world. But then you got, you know, closet Satanists that come in and worship Lucifer. And they got all these secret societies, and they have blood oaths and all. It's all open fact. So if you don't believe me, I mean, you just do your own research. New York Times tells you critical thinking's bad. Don't do your research. Don't go down the rabbit hole. But I mean, this is all openly, maybe not admitted, but reported. And they have their Bilderberg books and everything. Probably shouldn't say that word, I guess. But they talk about it. The cremation of care, look into that. So, I mean, they do this stuff, and it's up to us to find it. That's what it is. For some reason, they have not weird natural laws, but they have, everything is under natural law. You don't know what that is, go look up what that is. But so they have a code where, in some form or fashion, they have to tell you who they are, what their plan is, what they're doing. And if you don't pick up on that subliminal, subtle message, well, that's on you. You should have paid attention more. But Christianity is absolutely under attack. If you don't, I'm sure, if you don't believe me, look around, talk to 5 of your friends. I guarantee you, one's an atheist, or believes in evolution, or hates, you know, the Christians, because there's plants in the Christian movement in bad churches because of this 501c3 or 501c. What? It's the tax exempt thing that makes it a non-profit for churches. They have little rules they have to follow in order to keep their tax exempt status. So, and plus the Crusades, like Christians ran around killing people if you didn't conform to them. Horrible stuff. I agree. I get it. But, I mean, I'm proud to say I'm a Christian. I just believe in a Creator. I don't want to upset my Creator. I know I'll be judged one day, and I love life, and I love my God. I love my family. I love humans, except the crazy ones. But it's up to us to spread the message to say, hey, you're not alone. Whatever side, freedom side, Team Demon, Team Freedom. Team Freedom loves you. Love for you to come with us and say no to and be anti-establishment. Be anti-big government. Be anti-military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about. Be against this medical dictatorship that we're going into. Against scientism. Like, you can trust in science, but don't believe and have faith in science. And if this paper comes out like that's 100% true, that's not what science is, because anything can always change. In science, nothing is ever settled. Ever, ever, ever. Yeah, Christianity is under attack, and it's looked at as such a bad thing. Because I was like that at one point, where I didn't want to be a Christian because of all the past evils. I still look at Catholics like that just because they protect pedophiles. You know, I can't stand with that. And they think and maybe this is true, I don't believe it in my heart, that pedos can be reformed and, get put back in a position where they'll be around kids again. I don't think that that's possible. If you got that sickness in your head, you got to stay away from that temptation. That is, it's beyond excusable to me, and I'm pretty severe on the punishment on that. And I have no shame in saying peas deserve the end of all. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. In social media, speaking of that, it's become everyone's reality. I remember, watching videos on social media, and it does seem like every election year that the cops killing people skyrockets. And these just compilation. I've had so many compilations of just cops killing people, especially during 2020. And I'm like, I can send you a compilation of anything. Would you believe that compilation? Just because you send me like a couple of compilations of, yeah, there's 300 million Americans. Like, just imagine you can put 10 clips together really, within 20 seconds. Like, imagine how many interactions there are with the population of 300 million. Every day there's tons of interactions. So a compilation, if you take that as a fact, I could trick you into anything. So, but people are thinking social media is reality. And I mean, some of this stuff is very clever. Facebook, if you look into it, it came out the day after a program called LifeLog. It was CIA, but I can't remember if it was the COINTELPRO side of the CIA, which is just their like startup business starter system. But they shut it down. The next day, Facebook's announced. And so LifeLog, it was like they wanted to gather everyone's information, and they're like, well, it's probably unconstitutional. We wouldn't be able to get away with it. And they're like, shut it down. And then the next day, they got it where Facebook, you give them all your information. So you're doing it by choice. And instead of them fishing it all out, now they let you do the work. It's quite ingenious. Facts are getting so like warped in people's heads. This Gen Z guy, activist, and I feel bad for this next couple, or the two generations after mine. Like, they're activists. They've been so propagandized that it's doing a number on them mentally. And I mean, I can only feel bad. We can only feel bad for them. But it's getting so bad. They watch these cop killing compilation videos that, I mean, they think 30% of black people die every year. And then when they get challenged on that, because that would quite literally be impossible, and that's a huge amount of people, they'd be all gone in 3 years, but they probably don't understand math that way. He was like, well, what about 10 or 20%? Like, dude, where do you even get these numbers? Social media is not reality, man. Let's see. My biggest concern is the media. I don't know. Because schooling, if you're raised being taught a lie, you will defend that lie to your last breath. Guaranteed. Some of these debates I watch, like, some of them just defend it without even knowing what they're talking about. And it doesn't matter what subject it is. Like, the true believers, like, they will defend it with their last breath, even not knowing what they believe. And that is terrifying to me. So I can't decide whether schooling is worse or media is worse. Because if the media was like doing their job or doing it honestly and say the bank's stealing $1 from every person, every transaction. Like, if the media knows about it and doesn't report it, no one will know about it. So if I think if the media did a study, or not a study, but did a report on a study, or just said this school in this textbook is teaching this thing, that's a lie, it's not right, it's not correct, so, but the problem is all the people in the media, they went to the same school centers that we did, so they're true believers. And the lies on the health aspect it's terrifying. The media is going right along with it. I mean, I feel the media is responsible for some of the deaths, because when us conspiracy theorists were, giving misinformation, and that our disinformation was like literally hurting people, they project a lot. The establishment side projects what they claim you of doing. Like, so they're guilty of that which they do. Or what? They are guilty of which, they blame you for. Or, I can't get that. But so the health aspect, the FDA or USDA, they just said Cheerios is healthier than a steak. And I didn't look at how they came to that number, because that's just absurd to me. It's ridiculous. You look at the old food pyramid, they said eat 11 servings of bread a day. And we wonder, I'm surprised they had sugar at the top. We wonder why America's obese. It's because for however many decades, they've been telling us to eat 10 to 11 servings of grains and bread a day. Like, dude, that's a lot of carbs. And sugar used to be at the peak of that pyramid, and now it's healthier than a piece of meat. Like, absolutely insane to me. I heard someone talk about conservatives are having more kids than like the liberals. So I'll probably say it like that: conservatives, liberal, or left and right. I'll probably just say I'll intermix them: left, liberal, Democrat, right, conservative, Republican. I would say for the most part, I will differentiate between like the Republican Party, because that's trash just as much. But there are some good conservatives and right-wingers, I could say. There's some good. I mean, you got RFK Jr. on the Democrat side. I mean, I would love to believe. I mean, he's worked with James Corbett before. He's been in a lot of the circles that I watch and listen to. I mean, he did some good reporting, all factual stuff on Fauci. So, I'm just such a skeptic that I'm like, are they getting me again? So bad. That's what that yesterday's podcast was about, that CIA director. Like, everything we believe is a lie. But it's good to be skeptical, question everything, But conservatives are having more kids than liberals. But the problem is the kids are going through the schooling being taught by the liberals that are true believers. So, I mean, they're just getting our kids to switch their side and start hating us as parents, and it is a vicious circle. That's why homeschooling is top priority. Getting into the school board, because I mean, look at how some of these school boards act when parents confront them. Like, I don't want you reading this pornography book, and they're saying you can't. Like, I don't know if y'all have ever seen it, but a parent gets out and says, I'm going to read you a paragraph from this horrible book that's in your library for 7th graders or 7-year-olds.